What is going on, everybody? Welcome to the very first episode of the Public Land Nomad podcast series. I'm your host, Michael Woods, and I just wanted to thank you guys for tuning in with me today for this episode. So I guess I'll just kind of start from the top and give you guys a little bit of background about myself and my perspective when it comes to bow hunting and all that type of stuff. And just kind of recap the season. It's December 9th today. And so our season is wrapping up here in Oklahoma pretty fast. So we've got about a little bit over a month left in the season. So before we get into all of that, I guess I'll just kind of start from who I am and what I have going on. So once again, my name is Michael Woods, originally from Bradenton, Florida. I moved to Ohio when I was about 18 years old to be closer to my family and just for more opportunity. So I went to college in Columbus, and after I got done with school, I went to California. I got a job doing some farm work out in California, pretty well paid farm work out in California. And that's where I kind of discovered bow hunting. So I was about 25 or 26 before I ever even considered hunting, bow hunting, any type of hunting in general. We had some little small wood lots around our neighborhood in Florida, of course, that, me and the neighborhood kids would explore and set up camps and stuff like that. But as far as woodsmanship goes, I had to start from the very beginning, from the bottom. And that's also another motivating factor for me behind this podcast is I see a lot of people getting into bow hunting now and, really developing a passion for the outdoors and hunting and wildlife conservation in general. So I felt my perspective coming from somewhere that didn't have any hunting background. No one in my family hunts, or a few people fish. I was really big into fishing as a kid. But as far as hunting goes, I had no help, no one to lean on, no one to teach me anything. So everything that I've learned in these past almost 10 years has come from trial and error and just experience out in the woods. And, my job choices have always lended me relatively freedom of time, to an extent. So especially around the fall, my seasons would slow down at work. So I was always afforded the opportunity to really spend a lot of time in the woods. And I just really fell in love with the outdoors. So right about the time I was 26, I got my first bow. And this was when I was in California. And, I don't know if too many people know, but in California, there aren't any whitetails. So, going to YouTube for information and trying to learn about hunting deer, there's, a lot of information about hunting whitetails, but there's not a lot of information about hunting blacktails. And although they're, pretty similar, they're both deer and they, do similar things. The way they do it is totally different, and the habitat that they live in is totally, totally different. So I'm trying to learn about hunting deer from guys who are hunting whitetails in flatland, and I'm hunting blacktail in high elevation northern Sierra mountain range. So it was quite different, but I learned a lot. And that year, my first year bow hunting, I was blessed, and I got an opportunity at a really nice blacktail buck that you can check out the pictures of that on my Instagram page at Public Land Nomad. So, I got that buck, and it just really lit a fire that I had never experienced before. And I played sports, and I liked a lot of things, but I don't think that I really found my passion until, I got out into those woods and um, I got to be within bow range of these deer. It was just magical to me. It really took me back to, something just human. All my life I grew up buying food out of the grocery store. I grew up in real urban environments. So as a kid, we shopped a lot in the corner stores. We ate a lot of snacks, really unhealthy um, diet. So as I got older and I cared more about what I was putting in my body, um, and then once I learned about bow hunting, it just all came together for me. And I learned that I can actually provide for myself, and, provide for my family as well with the highest quality meat that this earth has to offer. So it just, it just went hand in hand with me. I love gardening. I love growing food. So it was just a no brainer. On top of that, just chasing those whitetails and blacktails and deer and just game in general is such a challenge, and it tests you as a person, um what you want out of life. So there's a lot involved with it, and it makes me happy when I see people that come from similar backgrounds as myself that are now being introduced to the outdoors by different outlets, or different people, and it's just an awesome thing. So um that's a lot of what motivates me for this podcast, is just to kind of relate to a specific crowd, but also to um invite the more experienced hunters and woodsmen and woodswomen into this conversation, and to get guidance, and just to grow um, all around. I learn a lot from the younger generation. My 17-year-old nephew has taught me a lot, just about tips and tricks and hacks living in this new generation that we're living in. So, we can always learn from people regardless of the age. You can learn from older people, and you can also learn from younger people. So that's my goal, is with this podcast, is, just to include everybody into this conversation, mainly people who hunt public land. That's becoming more and more popular now. The rising cost of land leases, the rising cost of property costs, um, like I said, more and more people getting into hunting in general. People are seeking out to access the public lands. So I've been fortunate enough to, like I said, I've moved around the country pretty frequently in these last 10 years, and I've got an opportunity to hunt a lot of different public land in a lot of different states and environments and habitat types, and um, I've had a lot of good encounters with deer, harvested a few nice deer. So I just want to take what I've learned from just really raw in the mud experiences. Like I said, I didn't have a crutch, didn't have a mentor, didn't have a shoulder to lean on. I didn't even have a hunting buddy. Pretty much every scouting trip, every hunt I've been on in the last 10 years has been a solo mission. I've had a few um, buddies that I've gained over the years, one or two buddies that I've hunted with a few times. Nothing consistent at all. So, I'm really a lone wolf in these woods, and I've taken a lot of information and dissected it over the years. And that's something that I kind of pride myself with, is just research. I'm very resourceful when it comes to finding out information and finding out the things that I need to know about anything that I want to do. And I've always been like that. So I feel like I can kind of give you guys some of what I'm good at by means of researching and seeking out the information, and help to, guide and direct in the right direction. Over the course, of me learning throughout these years, and just me continuing to still learn every season. I feel that there's some good knowledge to be passed on, especially to, the newer hunters, young or old. I haven't hunted a lot of private land in my life. I think I've hunted one time or twice, excuse me, twice. I had a friend of mine up in Cleveland, Ohio. He owns a hunting lease up there. I met him through Facebook. I went up there. Good, great guy, young guy, and he's getting outfitter set up. He's been doing it for the last 4 or 5 years, and it's taken off really well. Urban Buckeye Outfitters, Ryan Alexander. If you guys are ever looking for a good time, nice cabin, very comfortable, beautiful property, a great guide. I don't know how many people are unsuccessful that go up there, just depending on the time of the year. But so I hunted his place when I came back from California that year, and then I drew a draw hunt for an organization that manages a bunch of land out here in Oklahoma, and they have a lot of different properties that they manage for flooding and stuff like that. So they're more land managers, but they also lease the land out to cattle farmers and grain farmers and stuff like that. So they do draw hunts every year. So this year I was fortunate enough to get drawn for one of their hunts, and had a really, really awesome hunt for the weekend. Didn't shoot anything. I could have shot a few smaller bucks. It's not a written rule, but they tell me that they try to manage the herd over there, and they really don't like shooting anything under 120. So had that buck been on public land, I would have definitely sent the arrow through him, but unfortunately he wasn't big enough. So I respected his wishes and went home empty-handed. But I had a great time, and I'm definitely going to put in for that hunt as well. And I don't really necessarily consider that to be private land per se, because anyone can apply for the hunt and draw the hunt. So it's open to the public. So it's public land to an extent. So that's pretty much in a nutshell my background as far as when it comes to hunting. Like I said, I've only been hunting for around 10 years. So I know a lot of people might feel like I'm quite inexperienced, and sometimes I feel like that myself as well. But I've been blessed with opportunity. I've been around a lot of good bucks, harvested a few. So I think I'm doing something right. I really have confidence in what I'm out here doing, and I feel like it's just a matter of time. Pretty much 90% of us were out here working men, and family men. I have two boys and a wife, and time constraints and everything like that. But I am making decisions in my life that are going to help me to be able to dedicate more time to just being out in the woods on these public lands in America. I've thought a lot about buying a piece of land, but I still might buy a piece of land, honestly, but I don't know if it's going to be for recreational purposes. I think, I have a few business ideas that I want to buy some land for, but I'm really, really in love with public land. I've had a lot of great experiences on public land, and it's just always something new. I can just, pull up a map of somewhere that I've never been before, do some e-scouting, and then get boots on the ground, and it's just, it's like a playground. It's like Disneyland. It's just beautiful. It's always something new. It's historical. I look at those trees, and I imagine the stories that some of them have to tell. Some of those larger trees that's been there for 100 or 200 years. Just think about how many other people or hunters have leaned up against those trees. So I'm really, really in love with public land, and I really don't ever see myself not utilizing public land, um, on a consistent basis, regardless if I have access to private land or not. Um, so I guess I can kind of recap my season for you guys and, tell you guys what plans I have for the rest of the season here. So, I'm in Oklahoma. I'm right on the Missouri border, right by Missouri and Kansas. So I'm in a really, really good area for deer. Unfortunately, there's not a lot of public land around me. Um, Pretty much the closest public land that I have is about 45 minutes away, a few thousand acres. And then about another 45 minutes from that is a lot more public land. So most of my hunting, I'm having to drive an hour, 2 hours to get to these places. So like I said, time constraints and everything else. So I scouted a few pieces that I was interested in, that I found out about at the end of last season. Some really good properties. So I started there at my scouting season this summer. I did get started a little later than I would have liked to. I think the first cameras I got out were around about the beginning of August. I would have liked to get out around July, but it was just ridiculously hot here, and just super demoralizing as far as when it comes to scouting and stuff like that. In Oklahoma, these woods get really thick, and there's a lot of spiders and a lot of snakes. So in the summertime, you can almost expect to, walk into a few spider webs. And these spiders out here, I've never seen them before. I don't know what kind of spiders they have out here in Oklahoma, but they're nothing to play with. They definitely look like they will do you some harm. So, and the snakes as well. There's a lot of different snakes, and I've heard there's even some new hybrid snakes out here or whatever. So some water moccasins mixed with rattlesnakes or something like that. So yeah, it was pretty demoralizing, but this year I'm just gonna have to bite the bullet and get me some good snake gators, and just get out there and do some scouting earlier in the season. So pretty much my very first scouting trip this year, I hit the jackpot. I looked at a spot, south facing slope, that I thought was, pretty good bedding as far as when it comes to wintertime, and, having that good south facing slope to warm those deer up. I hit the jackpot and found a complete 10-point shed. Nice, probably 140-inch deer, 135-inch deer. And you can check the pictures out on my Instagram page. I actually got a video of me finding the second side on video. So that was really cool for me. That was the very first time I've ever found a complete set of sheds. And I've scouted in 5 different states. So, a lot of miles, a lot of boots on the ground. But I feel like I don't have the eyes for scouting or shed scouting. I don't know. I don't think my eyes are trained enough. I don't think I've shed hunted enough. I think that might be what it is. Also, I don't think I've shed hunted enough and, used the conditions to my advantage. Because I've heard some stuff from these shed hunters where, they're picking specific days because of the way the antlers shine. I believe when it's I don't know. I can't remember if they can see them better when it's cloudy, or they can see them better when it's bright. I think maybe when it's bright, they blend in a little bit more. I don't know. I've got to talk to some shed hunters. I got to get some shed hunters on here and drop some tips for shed hunting. I've also heard, shed hunting after the rain is good. So, there's a lot of stuff involved with that as well, finding sheds on the ground. So I found a really nice 10-point shed, set up a camera there. So that's where I really started my scouting trip. That was, I think, August 8th was the first time that I really went out all day scouting trip. I got out there at first light, tried to glass some fields, find some deer, find some bucks. It was excruciatingly hot this summer. So not a lot of daytime activity for deer that I noticed. So I bounced around a little bit, scouted some stuff, put out cameras. I got more cameras this year. I started investing a little bit more money in cameras. I've never really had super great success with cameras, especially around season. I've had some pretty decent results early in the season. I had some cameras in Columbus, Ohio, running on some public lands up there, and I used to get really good bucks on camera July and August. But as soon as September got here, they were gone. They were gone on the private land, or in those deep hollers and in valleys and stuff like that out there. So, but I think I've learned a lot since, when I was running cameras in Ohio. I think I had been hunting for 2 or 3 years versus now closing in on 10 years. So I think I've getting pretty good at picking places for cameras, because it seems like every camera that I put out this year was just in a perfect spot. And I got bucks on pretty much every camera except I think 1 or 2 that weren't working. So the camera that I put out where I found the sheds, of course, wasn't working. So that camera was there from August to October and wasn't taking any pictures. And I think the batteries were like the acid was starting to come out of them or something like that. I don't know. Something was going on with that camera. But I was pretty confident in that spot. I know there was, some pretty good bucks running around there. I'd seen a few driving around in that area, and I also found that shed. And it just looked like a killer spot on the map. Just something that, looked like it was overlooked to me. And for me to find that shed in the summertime, I really felt like it probably is a really good overlooked spot. I mean, it's not far from the road. There's beans on the other side of the road, but I don't see bow hunters at that location a lot. I see bow hunters a lot around that area, but not at that area. So but all my other cameras, I had bucks on pretty much every camera that I put out this year. It was a really good year for buck pictures. And actually I might make a little collage or something and post it on my YouTube channel so you guys can see the kind of bucks that were showing up on my camera. So as we got closer towards the season, I ended up finding out about a piece of public land not far from where I live, which was a blessing, because this year, with work schedules and stuff like that, it was just, coming off from last year where everybody was out of work. It was really, everybody was, could hunt the whole year pretty much. And, this year everybody's grinding back to work. So that was a blessing, me finding that spot, but I wasn't able to scout it like I wanted it to. So I think I found out about it a week or 2 before season started. So immediately I started going over there, glassing the fields before the opener. I had, 6 or 7 good bucks coming out in this bean field every night pretty much. So the opener came, and as expected, the parking lot was just, I think there was about 4 or 5 cars in the parking lot when I got there in the morning. The guys were already in there. I think people were starting to pull up around 3:30, 4 o'clock in the morning. So I wasn't really able to hunt where I wanted to hunt. I had a whole game plan for the opener, but as expected, you should have a plan B. So I had a plan B. So I went to my plan B spot. I sat in that spot in that location. And almost got a shot on a nice 6-point buck opening day. I have my Thermacell, the new Thermacell. I don't know if any of you guys are using the new Thermacells, but they have a little blue light on the side of them. And of all colors that deer can see, it's blue. The light is blue. I don't know why they made it. I don't know why they didn't make it green when you're using it outdoors. So he comes up on my strong side, just like everything like I planned, and immediately he saw the blue light on the Thermacell clipped onto my saddle. So he took off, and that was my opening day. So I think after that, I hunted for, so I hunted for another, for all that month, I basically just hunted around the pressure. I wasn't really able to get to the spots where I found the sheds until later on in the month. I had a whole trip planned out where I was going to go down there the first cold front we got late October, which came around, I think, October 24th or 25th. We got a cold front that came through. So I went out to the spot where I found the sheds. So to tell you about this hunt was really cool. So I get into this little funnel that's in between a bedding area and a cut field. It didn't even look like they planted anything in the last maybe year or two. It's just dirt. They're tilling it, but they're not planting it. I think the soil was maybe too wet or something like that, because it was really muddy to walk through. So, I didn't have a tree picked out or anything. So I said at first light, I'm going to pretty much be where I need to be to close the distance, and find a tree within the next 40 or 50 yards. So as I'm walking into this funnel, I see a buck's legs standing there. And then he just walked out into the woods, and he was a good 130-inch, nice dark horn, real thin, tall frame deer. So I saw where he walked through this funnel and out into the bedding area. So I'm like, cool. So I go and set up right on the trail where he went into the bedding area at, thinking that, he might come back out later on, or there's another buck that might come down that same trail into that bedding area. So I sat there all day until about 2:00, and I got in there at first light. So I sat there all day until about 2:00, didn't see any deer. At 2:00, I got down. I think I ran to the truck for about 10 minutes. And then I came right back. So for the evening sit, I'm like, should I sit at the same spot I was sitting on the trail where I seen him go into, or should I sit back in the funnel more? So I chose to pick a different tree back in, where he, really was coming from, thinking that, I don't really know what I was thinking, honestly. I don't even know why I moved, because I sat there all night, and this huge buck, probably 160, 170 inches, comes out of that trail and walks right by the tree that I was in all day long, 10 yards from the tree, stops at the scrape that I sat up by, hits the scrape. He reads the script, pretty much. Reads the script. So, and I'm literally lowering my bow to the ground because I'm trying to get out of there before it gets too dark and those deer start funneling through there. I figured I was going to be able to kill something and then I wouldn't have that issue. But, now I got this huge deer hitting this scrape in this funnel, and I've got to walk in that direction. That's the direction that I came from, or I have to go the other direction, in the direction that the deer are moving towards, where there's a bean field on the other side of this funnel. So I pull my bow back up, and I start grunting at him, and I'm losing light fast. I'm pretty much out of light. I'm grunting at him, trying to snort wheeze at him. He's not interested in any of it. I think he just kind of stood there and listened, honestly, and probably just looked around. So I just had to sit there for about a half hour until I felt, comfortable enough to move off. So I got down and broke everything down, and I had to go back home the next day. So that was how my October kind of started and ended. Opening day, I almost had a shot on a buck, and then the end of last week of October, I almost had a shot on a really, really nice buck. Really nice buck. That would have been game changing for me. I've never harvested a buck that big. So I was really, really encouraged, but also really disappointed in myself that I moved. And I've been learning to trust my intuition because there's been a few times where I've second guessed myself. And if I would have just trusted myself from the beginning, I would have had some really nice bucks up on the wall. So, that's just something to take away from that is just, trusting your intuition. Usually the first time you have something figured out that's the direction you need to go, and second guessing yourself is only going to bring more variables and more factors into whatever it is you're trying to process. So for myself, at least, I know I've been learning to trust my intuition a little bit more, and it's been working out. So October, it ends, and November 1st. So November 1st, I go into a brand new piece that I've never scouted, never hunted. It looked really, really good on the map, but every time I drove by, I just seen a truck or two, the same two trucks in that spot. So I never, wanted to climb up on top of somebody's hunting spot like that, because it's not a really big piece. It's only about 350 acres. So got an opportunity to hunt that spot. Pulled up, didn't have a car in the parking lot. So I walk the trail around this whole piece. And there's not a lot of mature timber at all in this whole piece. It's mostly regeneration, oak regeneration. So there's a lot of just oak saplings that are just grown together next to each other, and it just creates this thick layer of bedding, this impenetrable thick layer of bedding that, you could only really go through crouched down, most of it on your hands and knees, and squeeze in between these really thin oak saplings. So they have trails kind of cut all the way around this place, so you can walk around it. And then in the front of it, there's a pecan grove. So I walked pretty much the whole thing around in about an hour. I walked the whole thing around it, just kind of speed walking it, because it was an evening hunt and I didn't have a lot of time to get set up. So I didn't really find any sign. I didn't see anything that was interesting. I just knew I didn't have a lot of time to do anything else. So I just threw a Hail Mary. I went back to the front where the pecan trees were, and I got up in a tree that was right on the transition of, where they're going into that real thick sapling regrowth and coming out into this pecan grove. So that's to my back pretty much. And I'm thinking they're going to come out. So the wind is blowing. It's like a crosswind. So, if they come out behind me, I got to pretty much shoot them while they're behind me, because if they walk in front of me, they're going to catch my wind. So that was the setup. So I sat there as I'm getting set up. Yeah, of course, as expected, I should have known, the guy who usually hunts there, he's walking back to his stand. So we wave at each other. So I'm sitting there, and then all of a sudden, I look out across me about 80 yards. I see 3 does come out of this other thicket where they're bedding at. So I'm watching these does, and I'm watching one of them, because one of them caught my eye, and she just looked funny. She had this real dark brown patch on her butt, right by her tail. She had a really dark, it was like a rectangle, and it was just really, really dark, and it looked like a buck's tarsal glands on his leg. It was really dark brown like that. So through the binoculars, I'm just looking at her, and she's making a scrape. She's walking out 30 yards and she'll come back and hit the scrape again. She'll walk out 30 yards, come back and hit the scrape again, pee in the scrape. So I figured out she was a hot doe. So I'm just watching these does. And then about 45 minutes later, probably 15 or 20 minutes before last light, we got 3 or 4 bucks that come out. So I couldn't tell what all of them were, but I knew one of them was a shooter. So they walk around. So the other bucks are more interested in the does than the shooter buck is. It was kind of weird to me because I figured the shooter buck was going to get drawn off by the does and was going to leave me the smaller bucks. And there was like a spike in there that I seen and some other little bucks behind them. So they kind of like push the does off and mosey off with the does while the shooter is walking down the trail back towards the access once again where I gotta go, where I have to, this is pretty much a peninsula that's surrounded by water on 2 sides. So I have to walk back over this land bridge where this deer is walking towards. So I'm grunting at him. I'm grunting. I'm trying to get his attention. He's not paying it any attention. So right before he gets to this land bridge where he has to cross, where we both have to cross the water to get to the other side, he stops and turns around and looks my direction and pretty much committed. He turned his whole body turned. So I pretty much knew he was interested. So, and at this point, I'm not trying to sound like a deer. It's funny because I'm, the whole time I'm grunting at him, I'm trying to sound, conservatively like a deer, and which didn't have his interest at all. But once I just started like ravishing this deer call and just blowing on this thing, it got his attention. And, it was the most unconventional deer call I've ever heard, grunt call I've ever heard, but it worked. And he came in and he walked about almost 200 yards and walked my direction and got to about 27 yards where my scent trail would have been blowing and stopped there. And as he stopped to turn around to leave, he went broadside and he was standing at 27 yards. I ranged him. He was at 27 yards. So I drew, settled the pin right in the V, right behind his leg, and I shot the arrow. So the arrow impacted him a little bit higher than what I expected to, and the arrow stayed in him. So I seen him run off and the arrow's just still stuck in him. So I'm just, I'm kind of freaking out a little bit. I'm like, So I wait about 10 minutes, but I'm losing light fast. So I'm like, okay, let me at least get down to see if there's any blood by the impact area. So I kind of pack everything up. Takes me about a good 10, 15 minutes to pack all my gear up, get my platform down and sticks packed up and everything quietly. As I'm packing up, the guy is walking back from his tree stand. So, he asked me what happened. I told him I shot a buck, whatever. So we go to the impact site and I had blood for maybe 5 or 10 yards and then it just dried up. So I immediately, in my head, I knew I was going to call a tracker dog. And shout out to Oklahoma Blood Trackers Association because they came out that night and they stayed until midnight helping me look for this deer. So I leave with the guy, we're walking out. I go home, I call the blood tracker, get in contact with them. They're about 45 minutes away from me. They came that night and I just really can't thank them enough. And they didn't even ask me for any money, but of course I sent them home with some. So, we're on this deer, good blood for, it's so funny. Over 700 yards, this deer bled consistently. Not like a full just blood stream, but, splashes of blood. Splashes. Not spots, but splashes. Splashes of blood. In one spot, you can tell he stood there and the blood just sprayed in like a crescent moon shape. I've got really good pictures of it. And I was really, really expecting to find that deer dead. I looked for that deer for 2 days. So from November 1st to November 3rd, I did nothing but look for that deer. I spent 2 full days after that, after the shot, looking for that deer. And I got permission from some people to go and look on their land and never found that deer. And I actually had a dream. I had a dream that he was dead in a creek by a barn, a red barn that was surrounded by tall brown grass. So I woke up and I was looking on the map around that area for a barn that was red, that was surrounded by taller light brown grass, and I found it. I found the spot, where I had the dream about, but they wouldn't give me access to come and look for the deer. They said they just, they don't allow anybody to come on their land, which was understandable. So, I had to chalk that up. But, from November 1st to November 3rd, I looked for that deer. And that's the first buck I've ever shot that I've never found. That was the first. So, I was just really, really hard on myself. And I didn't hunt for the rest of the next week. So I think the next time I got back in the tree was November 1st. Yeah, like November 8th. So I looked for the deer till the 3rd. And then I took the rest of the week off and just shot my bow. Just shot my bow every day. Woke up, first thing I did in the morning, go outside, shoot. And then I shot again before the sun was going down. Just, trying to mentally just get over that. So, November 8th, I go to another spot, not the same spot, but kind of close. And so this hunt was crazy. This hunt was crazy. I had been running the camera in this funnel, and so the camera had been there since the beginning of October sometime. And so I go into this funnel. I pick out a tree, just kind of running and gunning. Didn't really have anything prepped or anything like that. So I get up in this tree, and literally 5 minutes after I put my bow in the bow holder, I got this buck running off the ridge behind me. He runs right down the funnel. I stopped him perfectly broadside. Drew, shot, and pretty much impacted in the very exact same spot that I shot that other buck. The arrow did the exact same thing. It stuck in him, and he ran off. And this deer didn't leave any blood at all. So that the rest of the day, November 8th, I spent looking for him, and we didn't find any blood. And actually, there was another guy who shot a buck that morning, and so he's at the parking lot with his buck when I go back to the truck, from demoralized from looking for my buck. And they actually came out. It was about 3 of them, and we just grid searched the area and just tried to find blood. And 4 sets of eyes couldn't find any blood. So I don't know what was going on with that. I don't, I'm pretty much thinking it was just equipment error. You know what I mean? I used the same arrows and the same broadheads, but that's the same setup that I killed my buck with last year. So right after that, I went and bought some NAP Kill Zone 2-inch cutting diameter broadheads that, I've been running for a while. This would have been the second season that I've been running fixed blades. Every other year I've ran expandables, never lost a deer. So yeah, man, this year has been quite the rodeo for me, quite the roller coaster, ups and downs, man. The first buck, the one that I shot on November 1st, I thought that was a dead deer. We found the arrow. The arrow was coated in bright red blood. The blood trail, you know, easy to follow pretty much with the dog, at least, you know. I mean, going back the next day, and seeing all the tissue that was laying everywhere that I had to pick up, that was a really good blood trail, better than some that I've had that I found the deer. So I'm still, really bummed out about it, but I know people who've been hunting twice and three times as long as I have, that it still happens too. So, it just is what it is. And, I think I was in the right places at the right time. I think I read the sign the right way. I think I interpreted it the right way. I think a lot of things that I haven't been doing right this year, I really executed on. So, I got to give myself a pat on the back for ever since scouting season. I've been really just kind of hitting it on the head. All this year has been, and last year, just, really good years for me as far as having encounters. I don't think I've ever had a year where I've been around as many shooter bucks that I have been around this year. Not all of them have been in bow range, of course, but just me being in the right place at the right time, I think I'm really starting to dial that in. So, so that, those were the two bucks that I shot this year. I could have been tagged out already here in Oklahoma and moving on to another state. I was supposed to go to Ohio this year. I canceled that just because of, me shooting these two bucks and not finding either one of them. I'm really kind of trying to discipline myself and, fix whatever issues that I have. So like I said, those broadheads are swapped out. Next year, gonna be shooting some vector arrows. But other than that, I think I just gotta move forward and just keep hunting and just stay out there. I think eventually it's gonna happen. It's just a matter of time. So, it's December 9th right now. We've got a little bit over 30 days left in the season. And, this actually is really one of the best times to kill a buck. Like, I see a lot of bucks dying during these late season hunts. So I've got some properties that still have some beans up on public land that I'm going to be going to revisit. Actually, tomorrow I'm going to make a drive out there. I would be getting up at about 3:30, 4 o'clock and heading west to some of my more in-demand hunting spots in western Oklahoma. And we're just going to keep moving forward. So, yeah, I mean, our weather is horrible right now. Today it was 73 degrees, overcast, cloudy, humid, warm, muggy, sticky. And we're a couple of weeks away from from Christmas. So, yeah, the weather isn't cooperating at all. But we're gonna stay on it until we either tag out or the season's over with. So, yeah, that's pretty much been my season so far. I'm just really waiting. Hopefully we get a good cold front coming this week and, keep these deer up on their feet and not going back to bed so early and staying bedded so long. So, but you can only do with what you have. So we're going to keep hunting. We're going to keep hunting through all that. So, yeah, guys, we've been on here almost an hour. It's crazy how fast time flies. But we're gonna be back. We're gonna be right back here next week. So I hope you guys enjoyed this first episode of the Public Land Nomad podcast series. Next week we'll probably be back with another kind of semi update. But we're just gonna kind of go from here and get into some stories about some past hunts that I want to talk to you guys about. We'll get into some tactics. We'll get into some gear reviews. I got a lot of new gear this year, so there's a lot of a lot of gear that I can talk to you guys about. This year was the first year I started saddle hunting. So I got my saddle last year at the end of the season. I think I had about a month left. I think I got it around about this time last year, December 9th, December 10th is when I got my saddle last year. So I went from a saddle platform all this year, and then now I just switched out the platform for a one stick setup. So we're going to get into all of that, guys. So I hope you guys are going to stick with me. Thank you once again for joining me on this first episode of the Public Land Nomad podcast series. I'm really excited for this series, guys. Like, there's a lot of things I want to share with you. I'm just hoping that we can keep the conversation going. And like I said, feel free to, leave me any comments or tips or anything that, you think might be helpful to some new hunters. So, once again, thank you guys so much, and have a blessed day.